Star Wars is back, in the form of a mini-series based around Obi Wan Kenobi, set 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. What was a promising fast start turns into a stumble as soon as we hit a couple of hurdles. Let's dive into what worked and what didn't work in the first 2 episodes of Kenobi. Let's start with the positive. For the most part, the show looks great. We've got a wide selection of scenery, which is surprising considering I thought we may have been mainly limited to Tatooine. Being stuck on Tatooine isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sure, it's often an overused planet, but in the recent TV shows they've managed to expand on areas of the planet in meaningful ways, especially in regards to the Tusken Raiders as seen in the Mandalorian Season 2 premiere of The Marshal, which is arguably the show's best episode and my favourite. We get glimpses of Alderaan, which is a nice touch considering we see very little of the planet in most of the films and television shows, and it was kinda cool to see Leia's royal life. And finally, the planet of Dayu, where most of the action of episode 2 takes place, is a nice contrast to the previously mentioned planets, with its neon-lit lights and grungy atmosphere. A perfect setting for an underworld story of drugs and stealing children. Ewan McGregor seamlessly slots back into the Kenobi character as if he hadn't left. It's actually shocking to me that it's been 17 years since Revenge of the Sith. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Moving swiftly on though, what a great choice it was to have a quality actor in Joel Edgerton show up as Uncle Owen in the prequels. If you're not aware, he's gone on to direct and star in some fantastic films. You'll most likely recognise him in the film Warrior opposite Tom Hardy. I really hope we get more of him in the show. Him butting heads with Ben, I think that's the most interesting in regards to the drama of the characters, because Obi-Wan still has the belief he'll be training Luke Skywalker, so something will happen I believe that will nip that idea in the bud and Luke will be left to live Obama's life.
You don't care if he's okay, you care if he's showing.
It's my responsibility, Owen.
We also get Jimmy Smits returning as Bail Organa, which is a welcome return. I just didn't realise we'd see so much of him. Which brings me on to the next point. Continuity. I hate to be the guy that complains about canon and continuity, but this show is on a path of blowing a few things up and we're only 2 episodes in. The problem we have is that Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine was such an alien concept to me. My belief was he always stayed on that planet to look over Luke. He wasn't going to leave that post or do anything to risk exposing himself or Luke Skywalker. They're playing the long game here. There's even been novels about Kenobi's time on Tatooine set between episode 3 and 4, and I highly recommend checking out that story because it's fantastic, especially with what they were able to do with the scenario. But having Bail Organa show up on Tatooine begging Obi-Wan to save Leia, and he goes and does that, boy does that wreck my head. Instantly, I think back to the message Leia gives to R2-D2 in episode 4. She speaks as if she's never met the guy, and you could argue, oh, she's forgotten about him. If it wasn't such a huge incident, being kidnapped at the age of 10 and being saved by a Jedi. Not something you'd forget so soon. It starts to pull up things that shouldn't be messed with, and the foreshadowing from casting decisions and interviews we've got about the impending duel between Obi-Wan and Vader in the show, that really just doesn't sit well with me at all. We know neither guy will die, and it's going to have to come to a standstill, and we'll have to find a way for one of them to escape the situation that's believable, but it's just going to become really convoluted because they want to throw in some fan service, which is the problem they have because they can't seem to find the right line to tread in regards to what's too much. Disney seem to deal in extremes as seen in the sequel trilogy where they go too far in either direction and totally miss the point. The hilarious thing about the Captive Leia storyline is that it's orchestrated by the third sister, Reva. She hires these goons to capture Leia to flush Kenobi out into the open, believing Bail Organa will seek assistance from Obi-Wan to help save his daughter. That already feels like an absolute stretch, but if she had just monitored Bail Organa, Bail would have taken her directly to Obi-Wan on Tatooine. It seems to be that people can find Obi-Wan at will. He's absolutely horrendous at hiding. Did he give Bail Organa his postcode? Jesus Christ. And by the end of episode 2, Reva announces to Obi-Wan that Anakin Skywalker is alive. She initially says Lord Vader, then continues to say Anakin Skywalker is alive. This almost made me nope out the episode, if it wasn't already close to ending. The identity of Darth Vader should be a top secret, and I can't understand how the character has that knowledge. Even in lore, characters like Thrawn and Tarkin know the identity of Vader, but don't dare utter it out aloud. It's supposed to be knowledge to a select few, and I can't imagine Vader handing out these pieces of history to other people once he's in pursuit. All they had to do was stick to the line that Lord Vader is alive and he's looking for you, because it makes you wonder, if she knows Anakin Skywalker and his various connections, why hasn't it come up in regards to Owen Lars and Tatooine, especially when she sensed Owen had some insight about the Jedi, specifically Obi Wan.
You know something? What's your name?
Owen.
Farmer, right? Wife? Kids?
Look, you could say, okay, not everyone knows Anakin is from Tatooine or that he's got family there, but she knows he's Darth Vader. This is only 2 episodes in that the story feels really weak, and that tugging at these threads further will pull it apart, and we haven't even mentioned the Grand Inquisitor getting a run through. Is he dead? If so, who's the guy in the Rebels TV show? Another issue was the tone of the TV show. It doesn't quite have it balanced. It opens up with tense moments in a Tatooine cafe with a Inquisitor looking for a Jedi. Now, the Grand Inquisitor looks goofy as hell. I can't overlook it. No matter how they light him, I just can't take him seriously. Was Jason Isaacs, the voice actor in the Rebels TV show, unavailable to resume the role in live action? He's a fantastic actor and probably would have knocked this out of the park in terms of performance.
But were you truly naive enough to think that children stood a chance?
But the point is, the scene is tense and eventually explodes with the Jedi revealing himself before hightailing it out there. Well, just about. Reva is this intimidating force because later on in the episode she straight up just chops a lady's hand off for questioning her authority. You do not cross this woman, you give her what she wants or you pay the consequences. They're building her up fine, but then in the second episode she meets the comedic relief and straight up, this guy should be getting either his hand chopped off or straight up killed. He has to be the luckiest man in the galaxy to have come away from an encounter with Reva without any real consequences. But it feels out of character, which means even this guy is showing up again or he's getting his own spin-off show. Now, as intimidating as Reva is in these 2 episodes, it's almost outweighed by the incompetence of the villains. Take the Scooby-Doo chase scene in the woods on Alderaan as the Goon Squad tried to catch Leia. The actress clearly isn't very fast, but because they tried to work around that, it makes the goons look really incompetent and not very threatening. We had this issue with the sequel trilogy where Hux got played for laughs in the 8th and 9th films, and you just never took him seriously as a threat again. The scenes are supposed to be tense, but because they can't catch a little girl, it looks so awful it's sort of unintentionally hilarious. Then we had to contend with Leia trying to run away from Obi Wan. I mean, I just can't talk about this anymore. I just need the kidnapped Leia storyline to be squared away in the opening minutes of episode 3. If this is a season-long storyline, then we've really squandered the potential of this series. Anyway, some fun stuff. I reckon Reva was one of the younglings in the opening scenes of episode 1. We'll probably see some flashbacks to the Jedi Temple slaughter, and I'm hoping that the majority of the work Hayden Christensen was brought back for is this. I think the Temple slaughter was severely lacking in the prequel trilogy. This was supposed to be Vader's grand moment, and a lot of it happened off screen. Yes, him killing younglings I'm okay with happening off screen, but it would have been cool to see Vader kill some legit Jedi. Hopefully we get to see that in this show, and I'm okay with that. Seeing Obi-Wan's mundane tragic life on Tatooine was great. Him looking at Luke from afar is just tragic. Actually seeing him having to watch from a distance the child of his best friend, his brother, seeing the similarities they share must be heartwarming and frightening at the same time. Him having to forge a life, going to work at a meat factory and buying back parts that are stolen from him, it was just good to see this in live action. More of these elements that fit the idea of pre-existing canon are more than welcome in my opinion because it feels natural and fitting. And one last thing I hope they can improve upon is the music. It just felt very hollow throughout and didn't have any real powerful moments. 2 moments they fluffed is where Obi Wan digs up the lightsabers and then he boards the ship at the end. Say what you will about the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy, or the original trilogy, but with John Williams on board, he really elevates moments in these films and this franchise in general with his score, and he's one of the major parts of Star Wars. I think they need to incorporate some more of those themes in this show. With certain Star Wars projects set in the old times or the far future, I think, sure, try and establish yourself as something separate, use new music to tell different stories, but when you're working within established canon and with characters that have their own musical themes already or elements, I think you should use them here. And I think using them for those two scenes and a couple of other moments would have been really powerful and made certain scenes pop more. Anyway, let's hope episode 3 picks up, and hopefully those two episodes were just banged out together so we could get past that initial disappointment and onto the good stuff.